Back by popular demand, it's my perfect draft here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball, but with a special little wrinkle on today's show, as well as one more we'll do in the future. This is my perfect draft, but not the middle of the round. This is my perfect draft if you have a draft slot in the front portion, meaning basically like the first 4 picks of your draft. What guys are often available to your team around when your picks would come? So first round 1 through 4, second round, 21 through 24, thereabouts. Third round 25, 6, 7, 8, 9, that kind of thing. There will be a little bit of number fudging as we get farther into the draft, but by and large, we're going to be abiding by that rule as I give you my favorites to construct a team. And I haven't even looked through to see if you put this team together, would they actually be successful? That I don't know. Sometimes there's a fit thing that needs to go on. But these are really nice value plays that you can typically get if you have an early draft slot. Welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Besbris at Dan Besbris on social media. You can follow me over there. You can follow Old Man Squad on Twitter or Old Man Squad Fantasy on Instagram. You can also hit the like button on today's video, or you can subscribe to today's video. You can also leave a 5-star review on today's show after the fact. And you can also visit our pals at BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. They've got every stat, every matchup breakdown, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. They've got the largest catalog of odds, everything. Football, baseball playoffs, hockey, NBA, political props. And when the games are over, head to the online casino. Get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starteth here. My perfect draft. This is a little bit of an exercise, although the more that I've done these shows, the more I realize that they actually can be something of a tool to team building. It's my favorite value plays from the beginning of each round. And it's, again, like I said, it's a nice exercise to isolate decent players that occur at set intervals during your draft. This is based on Yahoo's third board, the October 2nd revision, the pre-ranks, not ADPs, because I think pre-ranks steer the ADPs. And then when you see the ADP kind of level off, that's when you know a player where they're actually going. And obviously, we do a lot of drafts, so that does it as well. But let's get started so you guys can see what we're working with here. First round, Nikola Jokic is my guy in the first round. He is pre-ranked 2. You're basically picking between Jokic and Wemby if you can get one at the top of the board. My choice is Jokic. It doesn't really matter because at this point, if you have one of those top picks, you're going to take one of those guys. You don't have to think about it very much. So I don't want to spend more than about 20 seconds on this one. You don't need me to explain Jokic. Do you need me to explain why I like Jokic over Wemby again? All right, I guess we got a couple of minutes. Fine. Okay, so this is why I like Jokic over Wemby. Not necessarily because at the end of the day, when Z-scores are all tabulated, that one guy's going to be ahead of the other. It's mostly because I think Nikola Jokic makes fantasy basketball easy. He's good at scoring. He's good at boards. He's good at assists. He's good at steals. He's good at field goal percent. He's good for a big man at free throw. He's actually not horrible at blocks, although you could build a punt blocks team because he's not a big shot blocker. The only thing he doesn't do a lot of is hit 3-pointers, but even that, he's at 1.1. So as a center, he's not even really setting you that far behind. Basically, you can pick whoever the hell you want to go with Nikola Jokic, and your team will be fine, and that is why I like him, because it's just easy to play fantasy basketball when Jokic is your team starter. End of the second round at number 22 is Karl-Anthony Towns. I think he's going to be kind of fun this year. We're going to get the rebounds back. We're going to get some of the blocked shots back. And he's just he's a very safe pick in this neighborhood where, the other options around this are like Kyrie Irving, Chet Holmgren's in there, LeBron is in there, and I don't hate LeBron. He's number 25, so he's technically in the third round of pre-ranks. But, among these guys, Towns is probably the highest floor of anybody in this range, and that's probably why I went that direction, because you could make an argument for Kyrie and the big per-game numbers, but the health stuff. You could make an argument for Scotty Barnes, the youth, and some across the board stuff. I like Karl-Anthony Towns because I think you're going to get a 20-point scorer, a 10-plus rebound guy, 3 to 4 assists per game. You're going to get like 0.6, 0.7 steals. You're probably going to get 1 block, maybe 1.1. You're going to get brilliant percentages. He actually pairs well with Jokic. Not that you want to take your centers right out of the shoot, but like, what's your team not great at there? Not only that, Cat hits the 3 ball. He hit 2.2 threes a game last year. That's quite a start. Other than, again, are we punting blocks with 2 bigs that are not big shot blockers? Maybe. But again, I don't really care. I will give you the honorable mentions for each of these rounds when we get to the end. For now, we're just going to sort of plug our way through the first 10 rounds, and you'll see the names. Beginning of the 3rd round, I went LeBron. I kicked this one back and forth. I almost went Dame as my 2nd round guy. There wasn't. Did I switch one up? I almost went Tyrese Maxey. Did I intend to go Tyrese Maxey and then I typed it wrong? You guys might find out at the end. We'll find out when I get to the end of today's show if I typed LeBron twice or if I typed Maxey in one spot. In any event, that was the debate for me, was between Cat and Dame at the end of the 2nd and between LeBron and Maxey in the 3rd. Now that we know that Embiid and Paul George are going to be sitting a bunch this year for Philly, Maxey becomes a little bit more interesting. But LeBron is just such a rare combo type of player. Yeah, he's going to miss probably 10 to a dozen games, maybe even a tiny bit more because he's almost 40. But again, it's that combination of stuff where he's not terrific at foul shooting, but it's not so bad that it's going to detonate you. He's going to score, he's going to board, he's going to assist, he's going to get steals, he's going to hit threes. He's going to do it on a terrific field goal percent, which for this team is a pretty large strength. A team that actually is quite good at assists without a guard on it yet. And the guards are going to go ahead and pick up some of the free throw issue for LeBron also. And then you just kind of have to hope that he stays healthy and you'll be all right. And we just haven't seen every year. I keep thinking we're going to have the LeBron drop off, and every year we don't have the LeBron drop off. He averaged 26 points, 2 threes, 7.3 boards, 8.3 assists, 1.3 steals per game last year. He was amazing. The turnovers were not great. And this team I've constructed is not terrific at turnovers so far. But again, like, these are all things that are going to sort themselves out later on. I think LeBron is a good pick here. I think he's relatively safe other than the age. And that, I guess you could make the argument on Towns as well. But so far, so good. Now, 4th round, and this is where maybe you want to lean back towards Maxey, early 3rd, if this is the direction you go in the 4th. I understand that. If you're thinking ahead, I'm fine with that. I see no issue. LeBron, Maxey, LeBron probably has a slightly higher per game potential. Maxey, obviously, 2 decades younger. Because Kawhi Leonard at 48, to me, is back to kind of being a no-brainer. And I know we had these reports that suggest he might not be ready for opening night. Kawhi says he wants to be ready by opening night. Will he? We don't know. James Harden came out at, Clippers Media Day and was like, oh, we want him to take his time. We want him to get right. He's not going to play in back-to-backs. So, max number of games for Kawhi this year is going to be like 67. I don't think he gets anywhere near that. You're probably looking at more like 60 to 62. But at 48, we're also talking about a guy who has legitimate top 5 per game potential. And just think about this as a point of reference. Donovan Mitchell was number 8 per game last year. I think there's a very good chance, not like a medium probability, a very high one, that Kawhi Leonard has a better per game rank than Donovan Mitchell this year in 9 category leagues. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that, but that's where we're going with it. Donovan Mitchell played in 55 games as the number 8 guy, and he was ranked by totals number 29. That's just straight math, just adding up everything he did all season long. What if Kawhi plays 55 games as the number 5 guy? That's probably a second rounder. 55 games to be a second rounder, and he's being drafted at 48. I know it's going to be really frustrating if he disappears and misses 30 games. Guess what? Still beats this mark by totals. Remember Joel Embiid last year, who missed more than half the season? Now, admittedly, he was the number 1 player. He was number 52 by totals in 39 games last year. I'm not saying I want 39 games out of Kawhi. I'm just saying he could legitimately miss 30 games this season, and he would beat this pre-rank of 48. I almost never draft players that are hurt on opening night, but I also can't say no to a high first round per game guy. at the end of the fourth round. We're talking about a guy who could be within 4 slots of Joel Embiid. And like Embiid, and we just got this news that he's going to sit all back-to-backs basically, but like this is a guy going at 9. Maybe he goes a little later now on this news. Maybe he goes at like 12 or 13. This is 3 full rounds deeper for a guy with the same general injury risk and likely to be about 4 slots lower. 4 slots lower, going 35 slots deeper, basically, or more. Kawhi not. DeMar DeRozan is my 5th round pick. There wasn't anybody right at the very beginning of the 5th round. I looked at 49, I looked at 50, I looked at 51. That's Siakam, Zion, Jamal Murray, who's banged up. Jalen Duren at 52 is too early. I guess I could have gone Gobert at 53, who's pretty safe, but really almost has no place up to go. Miles Bridges at 54, I'm okay with. But I think of all of these guys, weirdly, DeMar is probably the one that has a chance to be a per-game guy about a round earlier than where he's going. Not a big one, not a big jump. And Jared Allen is there nearby as well, as sort of feels similarly about Bridges and Allen. And then DeMar, maybe a little bit better. This one's kind of by default. There's not a ton of good stuff at the beginning of the 5th round, at least on the current pre-rank board. And so to that end, I'm comfortable with you guys just going 3 or 4 or 5 slots deeper and getting your DeMar DeRozan, getting your Jared Allen, getting a Miles Bridges, whatever you got to do. That's okay. What do I actually think DeMar does this season is a pretty interesting question, because he was number 31 last year and he's liable to take some kind of hit this year. But the question is how much? And I would put it somewhere in the 1 to 2 round drop off, and 2 round puts it at that 55 number. So hopefully it doesn't fall much farther than that. There is a little bit of a chance that he slows more, but he's still DeMar DeRozan. And so you secure a safe floor player in the 5th round with maybe not a ton of upside, but such is the way the board laid itself out. Deal with it. We still don't have any guards. That's interesting. It's sort of problematic to a certain degree. There aren't that many point guards that are landing at the beginning of the 1st, end of the 2nd, beginning of the 3rd, end of the 4th, beginning of the 5th, that kind of thing. If you look at the board, it's just not where they are, other than Dame was the one there. Maxi's a guard, but he's not really a traditional point guard, not getting, 7 assists a ball game. And beginning of the 1st round, Luka would be that guy, but you're not going to pass over Jokic and Wemby there. And we just mentioned Jamal Murray is basically the only one N4 beginning 5th round. He's the only one. Emmanuel Quickly, you got to go all the way earlier to 45, who again, assists might be fine, but they're not going to be a colossal number. And then you got to look all the way down. Darius Garland is the 1st pick technically of the 6th round, so that's not there either. So that's something to keep in mind, and I didn't while I was making this board, but it's something to kind of look back on at the end of it, because at the end of the 6th round, my pick is Isaiah Hartenstein at number 71. He's basically the last pick of the 6th round within 1. D'Angelo Russell was the obvious runner-up here at 68. If he happens to make it that far, I would have no issue with you going either way on this one. D'Lo probably a tiny bit safer by all accounts, because he's going to get those full starters minutes. But Hartenstein's going to be a ton of fun because he just puts up numbers in everything, all across the map. But again, like, point guards, are they there? Not really. Not at the beginning of the next round either. D'Lo is the only real point guard in that mix. Most of them have dried up, other than the ones that nobody really wants anything to do with in there. You could look all the way down to someone like a Jordan Poole, but he's at 79. So now you're halfway into the next round. He'll probably have some assists, and Sexton will have a few, and Drew Holiday will have a few, but there isn't that big one. And that's largely because they're mostly off the board. So maybe that's a reason to look at doing a little more reaching early if you have one of these early draft slots, simply because there aren't a ton of guards there. Or maybe that's a reason to go Dame in the 2nd round instead of Cat, because you're not going to have a big selection of point guards to pick from. But as far as Hartenstein goes, again, I'm repeating myself, but the math I'd like to do on Hartenstein is, last year we saw him as a top 75 guy in 25 minutes per game, but the way he got there was very interesting. He had half the season where he was either hurt or playing behind Mitchell Robinson. He had another half where he had the starting job and he was basically unfettered. When he was fully unfettered, playing 30 some odd minutes a game, he was basically a late second round guy. I don't think we're going to get that Hartenstein, but you never know. That's the upside built in. There isn't much in the way of downside. Thunder gave him a ton of money. He's going to play 24 minutes at minimum. And so, again, it's an opportunity to get a guy relatively close to his floor. This was a hard one for me this round. The 7th round was a hard one when I did this last time around. This time I went with Bogdan Bogdanovic at number 78. He's the closest thing to pick 73 on the board that I'm really willing to put on my fantasy team. The players at the beginning of that round are Anthony Simons, who I don't think has much upside, especially on a team that might fall apart. Drew Holiday, who's fine. Brandon Ingram, who's trending down. Sexton, who's kind of fine. This is where he belongs. Tyler Hero at 77, who I'm not all that excited about either. And then Bogdan, who, if he steps into a bigger role, could be a top 50 kind of guy if the steals stay there. But again, where are the point guards? Jordan Poole, by the way, was my runner-up. He's number 79, but this sort of stretches the definition of this particular exercise. These guys are not really beginning of the 7th round dudes. These are mid 7th round guys. But at least if you have a pick at the beginning of the round, these guys will probably be on the board for you because you could just reach 5 or 6 slots deeper and go get you the guys you like, because the difference in how they're ranked at the end of the year might be 20, 30 slots. Not like at the beginning where these guys are separated by 4 or 5. So Bogdanovic, what do we think we're going to get out of him? I don't know. I mean, you can look at last year as a pretty good barometer and kind of build off of that. He was number 63 last year. 17 points per game, 3 threes, 3.4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.2 steals. I don't see any reason why the shots wouldn't go up a little bit. He was firing pretty consistently in his 30 minutes, but why won't the minutes be 32? Without DeJounte Murray there? Why won't the shots be 15 instead of 14? Free throws at 2.5 instead of 2. So there's a lot of things that could inch up for Bogdanovic, and I still like him there, even if a lot of the value has kind of been wiped out. CJ McCollum at 95. It's the same one I had on the last one. I had to stretch it for the last episode because that 8th round is also a little bit screwball. You could go Caruso in the middle of the 8th round if you wanted to, looking back at what we could have done on our last show. Or Jakob Poeltl, I guess, sort of mid-8th, although he inches a bit towards the front end of it. But McCollum actually makes more sense for this show because his rank is 95. So he really is the end of the 8th round. To me, this is just a safe play. Not everything has to be a big swing or a big shot. McCollum is just a safe play in the 90s. Even if he takes a big step backward, he's not going to completely fall off the edge of a mountain. And you're looking at a guy who probably won't be any worse than about top 100. The 9th round pick, Ivica Zubac. Austin Reeves, by the way, is the runner-up here. I think he was the runner-up on our last one, or did he actually get the nod in our last one? Either way, I fudged the numbers, I think, more on the mid-round stuff. This time, I tried to really stick harder to where guys were going. Zubac at pick 100, so he's just a couple picks into the start of the 9th round. He's going a little earlier than that in most drafts, but this is his pre-rank, and I think as you drop into more public drafts, you might be able to get him a little bit easier. Zubac has a chance to be like a 65 range guy if they play him as much as we're hoping he does. So we're talking about, more than a dozen points, more than 9.5, 10 rebounds, inching up in everything just from being out on the floor with a guy who runs a lot of pick and roll. And there are a few choices here. Again, Reeves is a good choice at the beginning of this 9th round. Rozier is a good choice. Herb Jones. These are all very safe, reasonable picks. I just went Zubac because I thought there might be a little bit more baked in there. But again, at this point, the honorable mentions are for team build. And this team we're looking at right now that I've constructed is fully devoid of point guard play. So, if guard is what you need, and I would argue that this team does still need some guards. Although, they've got 3 centers. You don't need a 4th in Zubac. So pass on Zubac and take Rozier instead, or take Reeves instead. Get your 5 and some odd and whatever assists, and just slowly chunk away at it because you got Big assists out of Jokic, fine out of Towns, good out of LeBron, okay out of Kawhi, okay out of DeMar, okay from Hartenstein, not many out of Bogdan, a few out of McCollum. What do we want there? Probably the guard, but whatever. And then, oh boy, this slide, a lot changed here. I probably should have made this 2 separate slides. 10th round was a hard one because you're looking end of 10th round now. There are a bunch of dudes I like at beginning of 10th round or end of 9th round, like Walker Kessler, Naz Reid, Daniel Gafford, Amen Thompson. Those guys are all between 107 and 113. Guess what? None of those guys is going to be available if you wait for them to come all the way back to you at the end of the 10th. They won't. The guys that will be are guys like Tyus Jones, Zach Edey, PJ Washington, Trace Jackson Davis, Brandon Pajemski, Bobby Portis, Cam Johnson. So I went Edey. There was no real powerful honorable mention other than those guys at the beginning of the 10th round. Like if you could get Naz, Gafford, or Amen Thompson, great. But I don't think they're going to be there at pick 118 for you. They're probably going to be gone. Tyus Jones, I didn't write him down here, but Tyus Jones and Bobby Portis have some appeal here as the lower upside, higher floor types. We've seen Portis look pretty good in the preseason. If anything happens to Giannis or Brook Lopez, he steps into a really nice role. And don't look now, but Portis was actually a top 90 guy down the stretch last year. His defensive stats were a little higher than you'd expect, but, I don't think that would hang on. But he's not bad. He's just not exciting. And with Edey, if JJJ takes longer to come back or whatever, he's a center who can block shots, get field goal percent, and he doesn't hurt your free throw number. So again, obviously team build, this makes no sense. This team has 5 centers, Jokic, Towns, Hartenstein, Zubac, Edey. But then look at the options here that you could have gone with instead. Dame in the 2nd round would have pivoted you away from one of those centers. Maxey in the 3rd would have taken you away from a power forward. D'Lo, if he made it to you in the 6th, you could have gone that way instead of the center like Hartenstein. Reeves could have been your 9th round choice if you wanted to go guard there instead of Ivica Zubac. So there are other options that you could have looked at. Those, by the way, are the honorable mentions in addition to, of course, Victor Wembanyama. But again, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 16 players that are generally available to you through the first, honestly, this is the first 9 rounds, basically. And then Edey in the 10th, but you can go anywhere you want. And frankly, I wouldn't have that big of a problem if you wanted to just look down the board a little bit and see if there was another flyer type guy you wanted. And in the 10th round, you could go Al Horford, you could go Mike Conley, you could go Norman Powell and hope that thing sticks for more than a few weeks. You could go DiVincenzo. You could go Andre Drummond handcuff style. You could go Scoot if you're in a punt build. There's a lot of stuff you could do there. You are not beholden to drafting someone near number 120 at the end of the 10th round. That was really more part of the exercise here in who the hell would be available around pick 120 and who's the most interesting in that bunch. It's probably Edey, although again, if Tyus Jones is there, especially with the team this particular exercise was building, you probably lean back maybe more towards the point guard there. But Tyus Jones, that's did I not get Chris Paul? Okay, I'll take Tyus Jones. Doesn't score much, but he's going to be super efficient. I love efficient guys. Is Cam Johnson interesting? There is some upside there, though, if he decides he wants to shoot the basketball again. These are guys that I feel I don't feel like Cam Johnson is going this early in expert leagues. I feel like he's going after the 10th round, but I'm guessing that in public leagues, he's probably going here. So much more fun to take a shot starting in the 10th round, though, provided guys like Naz, Gafford, and Amen Thompson are gone. To me, those are the last dudes you can point and go, yeah, these guys are going to dunk on somebody. And then you get into the probably, Tyus Jones is probably going to be okay fantasy-wise, and Edey's probably going to have some value. And we know Portis is going to have a little, and Cam Johnson might have some. And Horford's going to be great for 3 months. And Mike Conley's going to sort of chunk along. Conley is actually not a bad backup plan there either. But anyway, so that's your 16 names here that are typically available around where you're drafting if you're picking near the front of the draft. And I tried to, when I was doing this exercise, start at the actual last pick of the even rounds. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. I tried to start at 24, 48, 72, 96, and 120, and like inch away from that mark to say, well, who's definitely going to be here? And then who might be here? And there's lots of backup plans. Again, like if you have to go a little farther down the board, go a little farther down the board. Don't get waylaid by random dudes being left on the board that you didn't intend on drafting. It's happened to me in a mock I did the other day. Oh, there's Brandon Ingram. He's there 15 slots later than I expected. Sure, I'll just take. I don't want Brandon Ingram. You should have guys that you're not looking at either. And if they're still there, even after they like, oh boy, this guy's fallen so far, there's a reason for that. In those moments, I'm like, well, Ingram is a great example from this mock draft. I was thinking like, okay, I have no business. I don't want him at 70, but here he is still at 85 or 90. I didn't do this math before the draft, so I'm going to try to do it on the fly and say, well, is this where I'd actually want him? Nah. Because Brandon Ingram was what? 85th? Something like that last year? 85th, right on the nose. And 8-cat, I believe he's a little bit better than that because he was punt turnovers. So Ingram was 60th in 8-cat. But he's going down. And I care about turnovers. So I don't want him at 70. 70 is probably a good case 8-cat scenario for him. And it's not I don't think there's any chance he gets there in 9-category leagues. Sure, yeah, you want your 20-point scorer who gets you 5 assists, but also they just brought in DeJounte Murray. Don't get suckered by guys falling into your crosshairs that weren't there to begin with. Make a plan, roll with the plan, and feel free, like this, make lists. Oh, great, I just did the draft lottery. Most of the leagues that I'm in, I just did the draft lotteries for because I'm commissioner of a few of them. I know where I'm going to be. I know I'm third in one. I know that I think I'm like 12th, 11th, 10th or 11th in one of the other ones. It's a little more points leaguey. I forget where I am in the keeper league. In any event, like I know where I'm going to be. So the keeper league, you can't do it because guys are off the board and you never know who's going to be there. But the regular redraft roto league I'm in, where I found out I'm whatever pick, I already forgot what it is. I might not have actually even run that one yet. What if I find out I'm like 4th? Okay, great. I've got these chunks ready to roll. But I digress. Thank you for watching, everybody. Hit that like button, subscribe on the way out. However you're taking to the content, 5-star reviews, really, really, really big deal right now because this is when everybody's looking for their content. So if you can help us zip up the Apple and Spotify podcast boards, even if it's just for a week, people are going to find it. And then I'm confident you guys are going to hang with me during the year because we're going to have box score analysis every single night. We're going to have buy low, sell highs. We're going to have weekly reviews. We're going to have weekly preview shows. We're going to have mailbag shows. We're going to be looking at all kinds of different things with some of our favorite buddies that you've all seen here on the show all season long. I'm Dan Besbris for Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Find me on social at Dan Besbris. I'll talk to you later.